The Dancing with Depression podcast is brought to you by CAS-CM, where CM stands for Content Matters, because content brings people together. Is there a reason to believe things can get better? The answer isn't always found in a single breakthrough, a single tool, or even a single moment. It can be found through learning, growing, becoming more self-aware, and slowly discovering what helps you move forward. In today's conversation, we explore what happens when we stop carrying everything on our own, when we begin giving ourselves grace, and when we become willing to seek the support, perspective, and tools that help us move forward. But more than anything, this conversation is a reminder that healing isn't always a straight line. That growth often begins the moment we stop pretending we're okay, and that hope can show up in places we never expected. Welcome to the Dancing with Depression podcast. I'm your host, Adam Turner. This is a space for honest conversations around life's challenges, where we share, learn, and grow together through real experiences and real perspectives. And today, Sadiq shares some of her journey, some of her lessons, and some of the hope she found along the way. Today's guest joins me for a conversation centered around mental health, self-awareness, healing, and the realities that many people quietly navigate every day. I appreciate her willingness to openly share her journey with us. Sadiq, welcome to the Dancing with Depression podcast.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here.
So glad to hear. So for those that, are going to spend the next, 20, 30 minutes with us, for you, when you think about sharing your journey today, what feels important for people to understand about you?
I think what's probably the most important for people to understand about me is that I believe that healing is an ongoing journey. I almost look at it similar to growth. I remember one time, I believe it was my father, we were having a conversation about like evolution and things like that. And he said, you should never want to stop growing. I said, why? I'm a very inquisitive person. I'm always asking my dad why. And he said, you should be a lawyer. You ask so many questions. But he said, if you stop growing, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
When you stop growing, you stunt everything and everything stops. So in different facets of life, you should always want to grow. And I look at healing that way. So I think what's important about my journey is that it's a story of healing from trauma, from past traumas. And I think it's an ongoing one. The more I learn, the more I know, the more I do. And I never feel like I can't learn from anybody.
For sure. And I was taught that same thing. And I'll be interested to hear your response to this, which is, at any point in your journey, did you feel like you weren't learning?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that was maybe before my healing journey even started. I would say it's a cliche, but as a teenager, I thought I knew everything. I didn't think anyone could tell me anything, older people. I just thought I knew everything, and I have no idea why. And now I meet teenagers that think they know everything. My 5-year-old nephew, he told me he knows everything this morning when he was going to school. I said, what are you going to learn today? He said, I know everything. I said, okay. Just be open-minded.
Yeah. I've got a 11-year-old nephew, and he still thinks he knows everything. And it's a unique dynamic because part of you is like, oh, that's cute. And the other part is like, oh, buckle up, buddy, because it's about
Yeah.
to get real.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've realized like through these conversations and learning about different people's journeys is that people don't fully understand what they're experiencing in the moment at first. And then, they just know something feels different or, a little off. So I'd like to start maybe there with regards to how did you first get introduced to whether we want to label it, you know, anxiety, depression, something mental health related, whatever. What would you say your first introduction to, meaning that feeling that you had that something was maybe off?
So I will say the first time I felt something was off or something was wrong with me was when I was in the military, not long before I got out, and I was in my barracks room eating pizza on a holiday, feeling very lonely, feeling homesick, feeling a little miserable, probably depressed, which I didn't even have the language to know what
Mm,
depression was, I don't think then. But I just knew something's wrong with me.
mm,
This isn't normal. This doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel like me. It doesn't feel authentic. Something's wrong with me. But I actually didn't look into what was going on until I actually got out the military. And then I went to go see a therapist, and they diagnosed me with anxiety. And at the time, I think I did have severe depression.
See, and that's so interesting because, and again, I am still learning about a lot of this, but one of the things that I learned was how something can appear to be the reason or challenge or whatever, but then there's something underlying. And so I mention that because I think it would be normal for somebody to be deployed away from home on a holiday, probably reminiscing about holidays from the past and not having whatever food is associated to that, holiday, and you're eating some pizza. And I'm sure it was delicious pizza, probably the
It
best.
wasn't.
No, I didn't think so. I think the other thing that I've learned is if you don't have to add water to it, then that's I don't know what they're called, but you obviously know what I'm referring to. What are they called?
The hot and ready's, is that what you're
I
talking
think,
about?
yeah, I think so. Like, it's just like,
Cardboard pizza?
yeah. So, just you could kind of just feel like that would be something that could put you there. But you said you didn't have the words for it yet. You just felt off, but serious enough for you to, seek therapy in some capacity. Do you like time frame? Was there a period of time from when you felt that way to deciding to sit down and talk to somebody about it? Like,
Yeah, it was probably months later. Like I said, I was out of the military. And the reason I didn't just look at it as a normal homesick feeling is probably some of the dark thoughts I was having.
gotcha.
So everyone goes through things, everyone gets homesick, everyone feels lonely, I guess sometimes, right? But how you react to that and where your mind goes, I think is what made me feel something is wrong with me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And in those months leading up to, how did you initially address it or deal with it?
Suppression.
Mm.
High levels of suppression. I'm really great at it, actually. I don't practice it as much anymore, but if I ever needed to tap in, it's very much a very good skill set I have. I did it for a very, very long time.
Yeah. I think as we go through this, we'll uncover, your feelings of how you did and maybe now how you deal with it. But absolutely when you're first introduced, like you don't know. Like, I talk about not even being able to explain to my friend of 42 years in words what I was feeling because I didn't have the words. And so, you
And I
know,
will say,
yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I
no, go.
just wanted to say, I also have by suppression, I was having very unhealthy coping mechanisms at the time versus healthy, which I think I've gotten to that stage now a little more,
Hmm.
but then it was very unhealthy. Alcohol, drugs, all type of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, learning and connecting with, situations that you've been in versus maybe what I've been in is exactly why we do this because, I learned so much in talking to not just retired military or anything like that, but even, mothers and overachievers and so on.
Yeah.
And, we sometimes forget that there's components of this that we don't understand yet. And so if you don't understand it, how do you get help for it? You know?
Mhm.
So I'm not trying to press it, but I am a little curious, like, what got you over that hump a few months later where you were able to talk to somebody about it?
Well, since I was transferring out of the military, out of the army, I went into the army at 17. I don't even think I said that. But very young age shaped a lot of my life in a lot of great ways and in a lot of bad ways, honestly, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
But when you transfer out of the military, they have this whole transitioning process. And actually, I think it's gotten better over the years just from my work with military talent. I've kind of learned that it's gotten a lot better. But some key features are there health wise. And one thing they have you do is to see, I don't remember if it was a psychologist or psychiatrist, but
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of highlighted, you know, some of the unhealthy thoughts I was having and then gave me a diagnosis of PTSD.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, I think it's important that we become aware something's going on and then that next challenge often becomes like figuring out what actually helps versus what just kind of sounds like it's going to be helpful. So when you were told or diagnosed or, with something quote unquote official now, you had something to reference now, what approaches helped you deal like kind of accept it, or did you accept it at first? Or were you kind of like, nah, that's not me? Or were you like, yeah, no, you nailed me. You got it.
So I'll start by saying that I've been exposed to therapy, and I think I told you this personally. I've been exposed to therapy my whole life
Hmm.
since I was about 3.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is because my parents got divorced when I was 3, and my mom put me in therapy because apparently, I mean, it was hard for me. I was a kid, and my parents got divorced. And then trouble in school, I would go see a counselor. I never took it seriously that I can remember ever until probably maybe a year or so after I got out the military, because I realized the tool of suppression that I was using was no longer working.
Mm.
And what that looks like in real life is emotional outbursts that I don't control, road rage,
Uh,
things that shouldn't make me so upset, getting me irate. And that was because I was suppressing so many feelings and not feeling them, that when it came time for something that actually did make me feel something that was just a small irritation, it was like the top blew off and I couldn't control it. And I knew just from looking at the world around me, family members, what big consequences that could have on my life. And I didn't want that for myself. So that's when I started taking it seriously. I did some anger management. I tried medications, which never really worked for me. But after listening to one of the episodes that you did recently with the psychiatrist, I kind of see why it didn't work for me because I didn't really give it a chance. I was looking for instant, take the pink stuff and my stomach feels better. And I wasn't getting that.
I am so glad you just referenced that because it is like, it just embodies what I thought. And to
Hmm.
your point, like, I am connecting really closely because I went through a brief stint where I am not, I don't want to use the word violent or whatever, because that's just not, but I would have outbursts. I couldn't control them. And for me, they were the dumbest things. It was somebody cut me off the road and it put me in a space that not only could I not control, but if I'm being quite honest, I didn't like myself. And how that came about was Bobby was driving with me and I had the outburst. I had released whatever it was that I needed to release and I was okay, but I didn't realize the effect it had on Bobby in the sense of she didn't know I was okay. And that really bothered me because I started to realize that it was affecting the people that I loved the most. And I never wanted Bobby to feel afraid to be around me. And again, because some doofus cut me off. Like, I wasn't even in a rush to, like, it's not like, we were rushing to the hospital with somebody with a gunshot wound. So it really, I guess maybe I got lucky in the sense that that was my awakening, but as profound as it was for you, it was for me where you started to realize, hey, this is not where I want this to go. So
Yeah.
when you started to take it more seriously and start to learn a little bit more, what were some of the things that you found to be helpful?
So I'm smiling because I'm about to tell you a really beautiful story.
Oh, I love beautiful
And
stories.
and I hope it comes across the way it felt to me. So me and E were vacationing in Mexico and we were staying in a villa on the beach. And it was like a little apartment complex of condos. And we would walk on the beach and we saw this beautiful oasis of a resort. So we sometimes stay in all inclusives and sometimes we stay in like Airbnbs or private villas or whatever. So this time we were had opted into a private villa, but E was missing the resort vibes. Okay. So what did we do? We walked up into the resort from the beach, right? And we went into this I probably shouldn't be saying this, but it's fine. It happened. We went into the all inclusive when we sat down at the bar and we started to have some cocktails. And we're sitting there and a couple sits down next to us. A lady named Emily. I don't remember her husband's name, but they were newlyweds and they had just got married and they were celebrating their honeymoon. And Emily was a doctor that practiced EMDR and treated vets that had PTSD. And she's sitting here with us, two veterans that both have been diagnosed with PTSD. And we got into this conversation about EMDR, and me and E, this is the first time we've ever heard of it. So she's trying to describe to us how it helps with trauma, how it helps your brain put things into a more positive perspective. And it made no sense at the time, honestly. It kind of sounded like a fairy tale to me. It sounded like high technology. It was a little scary. And I was just, but something about that conversation stuck with me.
Mhm.
So, and then we talked about other things as well and got to know each other. And it was really nice. The next day, I was sitting on the beach. Now, this is a long strip of beach, okay? There's multiple resorts, multiple villas, but the beach is just everyone's beach.
But you guys only broke into one of them, right? It was,
Just one, just
yeah,
one.
okay, just wanna make sure. Your rebellious
The
self.
nicest one, of
Okay,
course.
of course, of course.
So I'm sitting on the beach the next day and I'm having a rough day and I'm praying. And as I'm praying, I'm just looking up into the sky and I'm praying and I'm asking God, I'm like, send me a sign, something that's going to help me feel better and, be a better person and live in my purpose. I'm just asking God all these things. I do that a lot on the beach. I pray.
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel closer to God on the beach. And as I'm looking up and praying, I see someone say Sadiq, and it's Emily. It's her face over me, like she blocked the sun and it was over me and she's like, "Hey, I thought that was you." And honestly, I don't even remember what we talked about. It was a brief conversation, maybe a couple minutes, just, "Hey, nice to see you again," whatever. But I felt like that was my sign. You need to look into EMDR. You asking for help. Here it is. And for about a year, once I got back, I researched, I asked my doctors about it. I advocated for myself. I said, "This is the treatment I want. This is what I need. I want to try it." Medication doesn't work. Talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy is not helping me.
Mhm.
I've tried it and it's not helping. I want to try this. And I had to fight for it. But eventually, they found me a doctor. She was a beautiful person and culturally aware. I related to her, kind of what you were talking about with the doctor. We just kind of got each other
Mhm.
and it was a good fit, probably the best fit I've ever had with a doctor.
Yeah,
And the EMDR was life changing, life changing. I would not be the person I am right now without it.
that's
It makes me almost want to cry.
it's a beautiful thing because when you're searching and you're in it and you don't think that there's anything, especially when you've tried other things, that
Yeah.
makes it incredibly, because it's like with everything new that you try that doesn't get you to where you want to be, you start to lose that hope and faith. And,
Yeah.
thank goodness that, like, it is a beautiful story because it happens when you least expect it. It absolutely has to forever be tied to E wanting that need for the what's it, so I'll give him his
To break
flowers.
into
Yeah,
the 5 stars.
I'll give him his flowers, but, I again, and what I love about me not being the professional therapist or whatever is I admittedly got it confused when it was first mentioned, and I was like, "What does a rap group have to do with mental health?" Yeah, everybody. I thought it was EPMD. Yes, that's what I thought. Hey, I told you I'm going to be my authentic self. So yeah, I know that, there's been, folks that have talked about it, and I love the fact that it is something that has helped you and clearly has made an impact on moving forward and getting through some things that maybe you weren't able to get through first with some of the other things, which is cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. It's very cool.
Thanks.
When you felt that and started to kind of see, oh, there's hope, there's space that maybe you didn't feel before, what were you able to like build off of on that?
Well, I would think it gave me less weight on my chest. That's how I like to say. I always felt like I had this big weight on my chest and I was just trying to ignore it. It freed up my mind to let me focus on other things because I wasn't so focused on suppressing everything I felt. I was able to feel more. I was able to give myself grace, which I think is a huge thing because almost all the trauma that I experienced, whether it's family trauma, sexual trauma in the military. I mean, I had some really terrible experiences. I kind of blamed myself,
Mm.
and I don't know why. Like I said, they reprogram my brain with the EMDR. Like the thoughts you're having don't make sense. They're not healthy thoughts. And we're going to try to get you to reprogram that and think about you're not going to forget what happened to you. It's not going to just go out of your brain, but the way you think about it will change. And it did. And that allowed me to give myself more grace. All my trauma wasn't my fault,
Right.
but it was my responsibility to heal from it.
Mm.
It's a quote I love, by the way.
That is awesome. I like that a lot. And, as you said, like, language and thoughts are just interesting to me, right? Because things that we hear can be said differently and have different meanings. And I feel like that's the same with thoughts, meaning how you hear it. And you suppressing things wasn't giving you the opportunity to better understand and give yourself that grace. So the fact that you were able to do that allowed you to say, hey, wait, hold on a second. Yes, this did happen, but maybe I've got it a little wrong and maybe I need to rethink this. And I kind of alluded to this, and maybe it's a stretch, I don't know, but kind of the rule that I gave myself after thinking that I was going to drown, where I said, I'm never going to go in the water again. And I was 7 years old. And at the time, made a lot of freaking sense. But what happened over the next 42 years was I never revisited that. It was just locked in.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I think what you're kind of referring to is the ability to go back. You have more understanding of yourself. You have more understanding of just life in general. And it's a very powerful thing that you're able to do. And you weren't able to get that through some of the other avenues. It's not like you're the first or last one that's going to say that. I think a lot of it has to do with, timing, openness, and so on and so forth. So something that you taught me in a conversation that we had has something that I'd like to kind of talk about a little bit more. Boundaries.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Where did that first surface for you? And in your tool bag of, you know, helpful tools, where does that rank for you?
I wanna say that may be right up there at the top because as I learned to heal and learn to reprogram my brain and give myself grace, it made me start caring about myself.
Mm.
And I'm not gonna say I didn't care about myself, but it was almost like what you said, I didn't like myself.
Mhm.
I was sad, I was mean, I was confused. I didn't like myself. So the more I healed, the more I started to like myself, the more I gave myself grace. I cared about protecting myself. And so I would say boundaries is a big one for me because I honestly, and this is no shot at my parents or anybody who helped to raise me, but I don't think I learned about boundaries. When I have a friend and she teaches her son, he's 5. She teaches him about boundaries.
Mhm.
And the reason she does that is because she says when she was a kid, she would walk in a room and her parents would say, "Go hug your uncle.
Uh,
Go give your uncle a kiss. Go
uh,
give your auntie a kiss." And sometimes she didn't want to.
mhm.
She didn't wanna be touched. She didn't want her uncle touching her, weird things happen in families. She didn't want to, but she didn't feel like she had the choice to say no. She gives her son the opportunity, even with her, she'll ask him, "Can I hug you?" And sometimes he'll say yes, and sometimes he'll say no. He does the same thing to me. So whenever he walks up to me, runs up to me and hugs me, I'm like, "Oh, this is a good day," you know? But I love that because I wasn't taught that. And I think if I was taught boundaries, a lot of traumatic experiences I've had, I wouldn't have had because I would have known I had the right to say, "This makes me uncomfortable."
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from the books I've read. more books I read, I've read a lot of books about like emotional intelligence. It really helps me. One of my favorite is The Four Agreements. I've probably read that book 3 times. And the reason is because every time I read it, I get something different from it, or it just reminds me of things I already know that I need to put at the forefront of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites is don't take things personally. Things are going to happen. You don't have control over it. The only thing you have control over is how you feel about it, your attitude towards it, your emotions. So if your emotions are everyone's out to get me, or you're trying to hurt me, or you said that because you think I'm a horrible person and you're all in your head,
Mm-hmm.
it's not healthy. So setting healthy boundaries for myself gives me control over the situations I put myself in and how I let people treat me. And it's powerful feeling like I have control over something, even when I don't have control over how people treat me. But I have control over the boundaries I set. So that gives me like peace of mind.
I knew this was going to happen. I didn't know how, but you were gonna take me to a space where I wanted to go deep. And I really I hope I can phrase this the way that I'm thinking it in my head, which is you talk about reading a book, gathering some insight from it, different insight, different times, and so on, which is the first part. The second part is implementing it. Do you recall if it was a challenge to implement it? And if so, how did you get past the initial force field to say, because it sounds like you knew what you were reading was gold,
Yeah.
but we are still human and we're programmed and we have to change some of that. And just because you know the information doesn't mean you're able to snap your fingers and implement it. So I'm curious if you recall that transition and implementation.
I wish it was as easy as snapping my fingers and implementing Adam. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I still struggle with it, honestly. And and a lot of it is some lagging factors too. I'll say that.
What do you mean by
Um,
lagging?
so a lot of it is boundaries that should have been set a
Ah,
long time ago that weren't. And
okay.
then I put myself in a situation where now things are a little blurry and I kind of have to deal with it until it's resolved.
Gotcha.
For instance, business and family.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say I don't think it's easy all the time. Sometimes it's easier than others, but I've experienced challenges at work with boundaries, work-life balance. You know how companies talk about that? I'm putting that in air quotes again
I think it's an
because
oxymoron to put those two words together. It just,
right,
oh,
right. Because it looks different for everyone.
mm,
And I think sometimes in corporate, they have this cookie cutter idea of all families are the same, all people are the same, and put them in this box and make it work. But that's not that I don't fit into a lot of boxes. Let's just say that. I don't fit I don't fit into a lot of boxes, okay? And I'm okay with that. That's part of who I am and I've actually learned to love it and embrace it. I think setting boundaries with family members that have known you all their lives and they've known a certain version of you and now you're this emotionally intelligent, balanced, peaceful, well, trying to be all these things. And they're like, whoa, whoa, you know? In my relationship, I will say it's been a challenge,
mhm,
but getting easier because I think we're aligned, if that makes sense. We go to therapy together.
mhm.
And I think I shared with you and Bobby that we learned about assertive communication. And that has helped in so many avenues, especially with setting boundaries, because you don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be passive. You can be kind and still be candid and say, hey, this is what it is.
Mhm.
And that opens the door for someone else to make a decision about it. But it doesn't give them a lot of opportunity to make changes for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's easy. I still struggle with it, but it's getting easier because
Mhm.
it's kind of a lifestyle thing for me. It's kind of like when you change your diet, it's hard at first, but the more you get into it, it's a lifestyle thing. Like when I go on vacation, I ride bikes, I run, and people are like, "Why are you working out on vacation? You're on vacation. What are you doing?" And I'm like, I like to do this.
Yeah.
So why would I not like to do it while I'm, like, at the beach, you know?"
Absolutely. And I think you nailed it with regards to, you know, things can become easier, simpler as you practice, as you get into a routine. But I think if anybody, comes into this and is like, I'm going to figure out how to be, 100% cured of everything that I've ever experienced and everything's going to be perfect, right? It's kind of like, I'm all about setting high expectations and goals, but there's this word called reality that you have to incorporate as well. And
Smart goal.
yeah, yeah. And I like that, you're aware of that, because for me, that was something that I had to better understand, which is it's about better, it's about learning, it's about implementing, but it's not about perfect, because there are still things that can attribute to a feeling or whatever. And you just have to adjust. And I think that, you have more understanding on how to address them. So, you know, as you're moving forward, difficult moments are still going to arise. You had mentioned, I kind of put boundaries as one of the tools. Are there some other tools that you lean on when you're trying to manage something, or something feels a little heavier than usual, that you can go to and implement to help you navigate that space?
Those are probably my favorite things, which is grounding. I love being outside.
Mm,
I think I've said beach. If you had a dollar every time I said beach, you might be able to buy yourself something from Starbucks. But I love being outside, and it doesn't always have to be the beach. It can be mountains. I love hiking. I love biking. Any type of physical activity that gets like endorphins moving through my body, oxytocin, like I love all the things because it does have a scientific physical, is it physiology? Reaction
yeah.
in my body that makes me feel better. I can wake up feeling crappy and I can go for a hike in the sunshine and I'm like skipping and humming on the way down. That's just how it works for me.
And Bobby had been telling me about that for quite some time. And it was baby steps for me. It was movement, because exercise in my head was when I was in my 20s and I would go play basketball for 8 hours. I went to
Ooh.
shoot hoops the other day and my shoulders were telling me that, let's start with movement first and maybe clear out some of the cobwebs or whatever else is in those joints there. But I really do think that that's an important component, is understanding that it's not about trying to get back to where you once were. It's about understanding the value of what you need right now and doing it at a level that it doesn't feel like work. It's not annoying you. If somebody wants to go on vacation and they want to literally do nothing but sit on the beach and drink their frozen drinks, then fine, that's for you,
Cool. Yeah.
but that's not you. And that's
I mean, I do that sometimes
so,
too.
yeah, there's usually a component, right?
Have my moments.
Yeah. Bobby's got it down to a science. Bobby has taught me that anything that you're going to exert, or like you're going to do, like do it in the beginning of your trip, right? Get it all out, and then you relax, right? Because if you
That's a
get
good
into that
point.
relaxed state, you might not want to jump into the other. So when we go on vacation, like the first couple of days, it's like we want to do this, 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 and this. And I'm usually the one that's sitting there like, when do we get to that part where I can just absolutely veg out? I'm a vegger, but trying to get better at. But I it helps. And going back to what you said, scientifically it helps. And I think again, we all tie it back to maybe in the moment you can't understand it, appreciate it, but the idea of these conversations and everything associated is to understand that somebody else has gone through something and it's not an exact science of what will help you get through, but there are things out there, whether it's a book, whether it is movement, whether it is, talking not to the rap group, but utilizing, the EMDR and so on. And that's what I love about this is, to be able to have somebody connect with an experience that you had. And that is going to create space and allow hope to seep in, which is a beautiful thing. I know we could go on for 12 hours, but that said, kind of tying things together, kind of wrapping up a little bit, I want to leave a little bit of space for you for reflection because, someone listening today may still be trying to understand their own experience in real time. Is there anything you want to share from your story that you think somebody else might be able to grab a crumb from?
I would say I've noticed that good people give grace to others, but sometimes they find it hard to give that same grace to themselves. And so I would say hold yourself accountable for giving yourself the same grace you give to others because you shouldn't be. I mean, it's great to give people grace. That's a great thing to do. But if you're not giving that same grace to yourself, you're missing an opportunity.
That was beautiful.
I just want to mention this. I heard something earlier this week that really stuck with me. And it's very timely to, I think, what's going on in my life right now. It said, what a privilege it is to grow into someone that you used to need. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because I'm very privileged. I'll just say that.
You got me all in my feels right now. I'm trying to wrap things up and you're like opening Pandora's box.
That's a good spot to leave it on.
It
Grace
is.
and a privilege to be a blessing to others. I
That is
mean,
a
I'm
beautiful.
smiling and I can't always say that I was always able to do that so easy.
Mm,
So
I love it.
healing feels good.
It does. It does. And it's part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
And so to those, I've let that marinate for a little bit. I do ask or allow or offer if there's a question you want to ask me. I y- Anything you want. It can be about the podcast. It could be anything. Do you have something you would like to ask?
So I may form this as a question, but I think more it's a statement. I just want to say, since I've known you, you felt like a safe space to me. And I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for being that for me. Thank you for being that for so many others who tune in and listen to your podcast. And I guess the question I would form with that is when you started doing this, and you may have mentioned this in one of the episodes, I may have even listened to it and forgot, but did you start this podcast in a way thinking it was going to help others? Or when you started it, was it more of a way to heal you and help yourself? And not in a selfish way, but
Yep.
just, is that how it started?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think throughout the process, it's has its own like mentions, but to its core, just the general thought that that question is asked to me is just bananas. I didn't listen to podcasts when I first came up with the idea. The way that all came together, and to answer the question, is it was for me. And I was very clear about it because I didn't want it to be confusing. And what I mean by that is I wasn't, the saying, if I help just one person, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if I've ever said this out loud. That one person was me I was trying to help. From that, I then saw that that might be able to help others. And, there's a lot of people that got this to where it is now because without Bobby and without Kaz CM and the crew there, none of this happens. Bobby, for what most people will think because, oh, she's my wife, is going to support it, doesn't give it the merit in which she supported it. It was more than just a rah rah, you did a good job. It was, you need to do this for you, for me, for others, right? And Kaz, CM, and, Eric and Scott, oh my God, I don't even know where to begin. Eric said to me, and I can't quote it exactly, he's like, just start the journey. You don't know where it's going to go. You think that it's going to go one way and it's going to go completely different, right? And I know you're gearing up for something, but it was, this whole entire thing has been as amazing and confusing as the 39-year-old met Bobby and we got engaged 36 days after our first date. Because in my only way to express it is I was ready. And the only kind of pat on the back that I give myself is that I was able to recognize that my voice could connect with someone, but other people's voices could connect with others. We were all still tied together by a common thread, but sometimes it needed to be heard from someone else. And then
Mm.
having the ability to connect with people, because I've also been someone who's very, very adamant about, if you don't like something or you want something to change, but you're not contributing to it, then you don't have the voice to talk about it. And so that's where the bringing in professionals, people that could speak it to help others, and then bringing in resources, that's the tie it all together type of thing. And I'll add one more thing that was very important to me in the beginning was, this was never going to be that I wanted you to feel like you were in the same space that I was. Like, I wasn't going to talk about the temperature in the room and, the people. I wanted it to be where an aging guy could remember what the heck happened. Because I started remembering things as I was talking about my experience.
Mhm.
I was 7 in some incidences. I was even, God, I hate to say it, even being 21, that's almost 30 years ago. So thank you for asking that, because it was for me. And it quickly became an opportunity to reach a hand out and potentially pull people along with me, as opposed to, you know, just kind of keeping it bottled up inside. And so hopefully we've done that.
Not hopefully, that potential has came to fruition for sure.
Thank you.
I mean, you've helped me before I even listened to your podcast, just feel supported and seen. And listening to these episodes of Dancing with Depression it's like a warm hug. I'll say that. It's like a warm hug. And I grabbed this card
Mhm.
because of something you said. So, am I allowed to say a curse word?
You can, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a small curse word, but I got these cards and they're inspirational cards for how to be a badass. Okay. And my 2026 card says, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And I just want to say that impacted me, and you've done that, Adam.
Thank you.
So kudos to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And I just sneaking suspicion that this won't be the last time we get the opportunity to hear your voice on here. I think that there's some really cool things that we can expand on. I've already got the vision of you teaching me about EMDR while EPMD is playing in the background and all of that good stuff. That's a visual for everybody to have to try and handle. But all kidding aside, I can't thank you enough and for sharing and perspective. And I hope you had as good of a time as I did, and know that it's going to help. I'm a kind of overachiever, so I want to help more than one, but we'll start with one and we'll build from there. And until next time, thank you.
It was a pleasure, Adam. Thank you.
Sadiq shared a powerful reminder today. Healing isn't a destination, it's a journey, one that continues long after we become aware that something isn't quite right. For years, she suppressed what she was feeling. Like many people do, she kept moving forward while carrying things that needed attention. Yet, through curiosity, grace, and a willingness to stay open to different forms of help, she found a path that allowed her to keep growing. Throughout our conversation, Sadiq shared several lessons she learned along the way. One that may resonate with many of us is how much easier it can be to extend grace to others than it is to offer that same grace to ourselves. So, if you're listening today and you've been carrying something quietly, or are wondering if it's worth keeping that door open, let Sadiq's story be a reminder that growth can still happen, healing can still happen, and that hope can still be found in places we may not expect. And a gift to carry with you from today's conversation, let it be this line Sadiq shared from poet and artist Morgan Harper Nichols' poem, What a Privilege. What a privilege it is to grow into someone that you used to need. Because even when the journey feels difficult, growth is possible. Healing is possible. And the person you need today may be closer than you think. And perhaps that's what this journey is about. Not becoming someone else, but becoming the person you needed when things felt hardest. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Dancing with Depression. And remember, when it comes to hope, take the lead. Ever heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child? Well, same applies here. It takes an awesome audience like you to help get this message in front of someone who needs to hear they're not alone. That's why I ask for your continued support. Whether you like, share, follow, or leave a review, and if so inclined, can donate, it all helps more than you know. If something resonated, pass it along. You never know who needs it. Want to connect? Email me anytime. dancingwithdepression@yahoo.com. And remember, when it comes to depression, take the lead. Content and safety notice. Dancing with Depression may include discussions of suicide, self-harm, trauma, and emotional distress. Listeners' discretion advised. This podcast shares personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional mental health care. If you need immediate support, call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. For non-crisis help and resources, contact NAMI at 1-800-950-6264.